Hello and welcome to Getting Started with Affinity Photo 2, a course of free tutorials, hints and tips on this excellent photo editing software. In our previous tutorial, we looked at how we can make selections to allow us to make selective editing to localized areas of the image as opposed to making universal changes when we edit with our adjustment and filter layers. We're now going to move on one step from that, which is to create masks. Masks give us very fine control of how we edit and how we make localized changes, and they're a very powerful tool, and once learned can be quite simple to use. Here we have a photo of some fungi on a forest floor. If we look at the histogram, we can see that it is very much all to the left. The image is underexposed. It's also lacking in contrast and overall lacking in punch. When I look at an image like this, I first decide what's my main subject matter. And in this case, there's absolutely no doubt that it is this central bunch of fungus. I'm not worried about this single fungi to the left or these little ones up here in the top right-hand corner. I want to make this area stand out. So let's look at the ways that we can use masks to do that. In Affinity Photo, there are a multitude of ways in that we can create and use masks. If we go to our Layer drop-down menu, we can see that there are several selections for masks. If we go to our Layers panel and we look at this icon, it's called Mask Layer. And if we click on that, we can create a mask very quickly. When we've got so much choice, it can be a bit overwhelming. So I'm going to stick to some simple procedures to begin with. No doubt, as your skills develop, you will look into these other methods in more depth and use them if you wish to. Today, I will look at this in 3 stages. We will look at creating a simple mask. We will look at creating multiple layer masks. And we will look at making fine adjustments to each mask layer. Right, we will start by making an exposure adjustment to this photo. Let's go to our Layers panel. Let's go to our Adjustments, Exposure. And whilst we're doing this, we will watch the histogram in the top right-hand panel. Let's increase the exposure. I think that's a very acceptable exposure for the fungus, which is my main topic here. And you can see the histogram has moved to the right in the process. So this is before, this is after. So you can see that the photo is much improved by this simple adjustment. The fungus is now very bright and colourful. However, the background of the forest floor is also a lot brighter as well. I would like fungus to stand out from the background, so I do not want the background to be so bright, especially this log at the top. One thing we can do is we can change our exposure adjustment. If we make sure we're clicked on that layer in the Layers panel, we can erase part of it. So we go to our Erase brush, and we quite simply brush over the areas that we don't want the exposure adjustment to apply to. Here you can see by using a very quick and simple technique, we've now darkened the background, but the fungus remains bright. Now if we look at our layers panel, we can see where we have exposure adjustment. We now have an extra icon beside it. This is a mask. The white areas have not been brushed over, and these are showing the full exposure adjustment. The black areas have been brushed over, and the exposure adjustment has been removed. This is a very simple mask that we have created. There is a second way of doing this, and I would like you to learn this second way because you will use this technique very frequently if you use mask layers a lot. So let's go back in our history. Go back to before we had the mask. Instead of a raised brush, we're going to paintbrush. And we're going to select a color. If we go to the color panel, we will select black. Now, if we painted black on the background, it's not really doing what we want. It's a bit of a mess. Let's go back. However, if we paint black on the exposure adjustment layer, it is having the same effect as the exposure brush. It is removing the exposure adjustment. It's not actually applying black paint. If we look at the exposure layer panel, we can see once again we've created a mask. The fungus in the middle, unaffected, is white. The surrounded area is black. By painting black, we have removed the exposure adjustment. Furthermore, we can adjust this further. If we decide that we've overdone it and we want to reintroduce a little bit of exposure into certain areas, instead of painting black, if we choose white, now when we paint over, we are actually removing the mask. Furthermore, if we change the opacity of the brush, and once again paint over, we are removing the exposure adjustment, but not the full 100%. We're making a fine adjustment rather than fully removing it. So this simple masking technique is very good, but what happens if we want to make a second adjustment? Let's say I want to remove a lot of the saturated color from the background, but leave the fungus unaffected. So let's go to Adjustments and HSL. If we remove saturation, you can see that it is affecting the whole image. We've now got a new layer. As before, if we wish, we could paint this black. Let's increase the opacity to start with. So once again, we have created a mask for the HSL adjustment. By painting it black, we've removed the effect of this over the main subject matter, which is the fungus. So these simple masking techniques allows you to make fine adjustments to localized areas within your image. But there must be an easier way than having to create a new mask every time that you make an exposure layer. So let's look at how we can work with multiple layer masks. So we'll go right back to the very beginning. Right, we are back to our original image. And we know that we have two separate areas that we like to edit differently. We have the fungus, which is our main subject matter. We want that to stand out. And we have our background of the forest floor, which we would like to reduce so it becomes unobtrusive, especially as there's so much litter and rubbish that attract our attention. So if we go to our layers panel, we're going to create two duplicate layers. We can do this by right-clicking and duplicating, or a faster way is quite simply to click Ctrl and J together. If you're working on a Mac, I believe it is Command and J. And very quickly we get another identical layer. So that we don't get confused, let's rename these. We click on the name, we'll call this one fungus, and we'll call this one forest floor. So now we've got two separate layers to work on. This time, rather than making an adjustment straight away, we're going to create our mask at the very beginning. I'm going to do this by selecting the area that I want the mask to apply to. As we discussed before, we've got many selection tools that we can use. In this case, I'm going to use the selection brush. We have gone back to where we created our duplicate layers and renamed them. So now we're going to create a mask that can be applied to these different layers quite simply and quickly. So we've clicked on our fungus layer and we're creating a mask by going to the mask layer icon. And very quickly, blank white mask layer has appeared within fungus. So it's only affecting fungus. So we'll select the area that we want to be masked, which in this case is the forest floor. So any adjustments we make only apply to fungus. There are a multitude of selection tools that we have, as we discussed before, but we'll use the selection brush tool. We'll quite simply brush over the forest floor background. I've done this quite quickly for demonstration purposes. We could spend time making fine adjustments, adding and removing certain areas and refining the edges, but for speed we won't. So now we've selected our forest floor. we're going to paint this black to create a mask. Our paintbrush tool, make sure we have the colour black, and quite simply paint over it. And it doesn't matter if we go over the fungus, because that area has not been selected. And now we will deselect. It's a little bit slow, but now you can see that the mask has black areas that we painted over, which is the forest floor, and the white area is the fungus, which is the area that we can edit. Any edits we now make within the fungus layer will only apply to this white area. So let's make an exposure adjustment. We always need to make sure the layer is in the right place. So let's pull that into fungus. So we now have fungus, mask, and our layer adjustment. We adjust the slider. We can see the exposure adjustment is only affecting the fungus. The rest is masked off. We could now repeat this with various edits. Say, for example, we want to adjust saturation. So the saturation slider is just affecting the fungus. So anything within fungus is affected by this mask. Now let's look at making changes to the forest floor that don't affect the fungus. So if we click on the forest floor layer, we could, if we wish, create a new mask layer and repeat the steps that we did before, but there is a quicker way of doing this. If we click on our original mask, we right click and copy. If we go to forest floor and paste. It looks a bit odd because it's actually sitting outside of our forest floor, so let's pull it into forest floor. Okay, so our mask is now in forest floor. But as you can see, the white area is the fungus. The masked area is the remaining forest floor. If we want to make changes to the forest floor, but not the fungus, we have to reverse this. So making sure we are clicked on mask. If we go to layer in the top toolbar and invert, our mask has now reversed. So the fungus is black and will not be affected by any editing changes, and the background is white. Let's now make an adjustment. Let's desaturate this. Let's remove all the colour from the forest floor. HSL, saturation. We take that to the extreme. All the colour has been removed from the forest floor, but has not been removed from the fungus. And we can make fine adjustments as we please. It's obviously oversaturated. We leave just a tiny bit of colour there. So as you can see, we've created two masks from one. Our first mask in fungus only allows adjustments to be made to the main subject matter. That HSL adjustment should have been within that layer. There we go. It's in the right place now. So, and within forest floor, we have a mask that allows us to make adjustments to only the forest floor. Right, now in our layers panel, we have our duplicate layers, but we have different edits for each layer taking place. Previously, we looked at making some minor adjustments by using our opacity and paintbrush. Let's look at that a little bit further. If we go to our forest floor, we click on the mask. I'm going to adjust the intensity of the saturation changes that we've made. So it's a white area. So to adjust, we're going to paint with black. We go to the paintbrush tool and we'll go to an opacity of, say, around 30%. Now when we paint on this, we are bringing a little bit of colour back into the forest floor, but only in the area that we're painting over. And we can repeat this until we get the effect that we want. Let's go into our history. This is before we made the fine adjustment. And this is after we made the fine adjustment. So subtle changes only, but you're in full control of the impact of this. It's a very good idea to become familiar with using masks, even the simple masks, because it gives you very good control of your editing. To get perfect editing, we need to move away from universal changes and to be able to make localized editing changes that create impact and allow our subject matter to stand out within the image. Thank you for your attention today. I've enjoyed this presentation. I hope you have as well, and I will see you again at a future tutorial. Thank you and goodbye.